Good morning, everybody. And well, I should say hello instead of good morning because you might be watching this a little bit later. Welcome to Writers Chat. This is the place we like to gather together as writers, talk about writing, all things writing for writers and by writers. So we're really glad to see you here. And I've been gone for a couple of weeks at Disney World with some grandkids. And so I'm back for a few weeks before I take off again. And so it's good to see everybody and touch base. And we're excited about today's program. I want to thank Melissa and Brandy for helping out today too. And we have one of our favorites back with us today, and it's good old Bethany Jet. And we love Bethany, and many of you have been with us for a while know Bethany is one of our co-founders. She's behind the scenes still with us, with always brainstorming, is always such a wonderful resource. And Bethany is going to present today on funnel segmentations, kind of an idea for us to grow our platform and things. So I'm excited about hearing that. Bethany, real quick though, do you want to tell us what's your late work, or what are your work that you could share with a writer?
Yeah, so Navigating Minefields is the young adult men's book, really for boys, like teenage years. And that is releasing at the end of September or October. And I wrote that with Victoria Dewerstock. We had the idea several years ago, and it finally came to fruition now through her press, which is great. And then, so you'll be seeing a lot more about that. And right now I am under book deadline for a Bible study called All in Faith, which will be a companion to Platinum Faith, which released in 2019. So we've got 21 more days until that book has to be sent to the publisher. So, I mean, you guys know that those last 2 weeks of book deadline are, for me anyway, they're chaotic.
So they can be. So best wishes on that. And thank you for sharing today. I'm just FYI, Johnny's not feeling really good today. So she's going to stay off camera. And so we're going to have mainly turn this over to Bethany to present. And then we'll kind of come back. Do you want us to go off camera and then you can come back? We can come back and ask questions afterwards. How do you want to do this, Bethany?
Feel free to stay on. I love Q&A the best ever, because I think it lets people, especially, there's always people who have the same question. So when someone asks it, it's always great, because then a lot of people get their questions answered.
Well, we'll stay on then and help you out. So we'll turn it over to you, because we love your presentation and we don't want to take too much gap time, and want to hear the meat of the presentation today.
So I know we're talking about newsletters and email funnels really is my part, and segmenting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and just show I'm going to call it a very simple funnel. And if you're not used to funnels, you may look at it and think, well, if that's easy, then I'm done. So don't think that. We're going to go piece by piece. But this is really kind of the foundation or building block of where your email funnel can start, and then you can add on to it. And then I'm going to show you inside of ConvertKit, which is the email program that I use. I created a second one, just I don't have any subscriber. Actually, I made my mom a subscriber, so good job, Mom, for you got volunteered. But just to kind of show how in the back end of the program, like how I use tags to segment, because it's one thing to say it and it's another thing to see it. So I thought that would be helpful. So any questions, throw them into the chat, and I'll go ahead and share my screen, and I'll just do a walkthrough of this funnel. Okay, so a funnel basically is when you're taking a bunch of people who are either like potential subscribers, really, and now you're funneling them down into a series of emails or communications. That's all a funnel is. It's just the process of how people go through your communication. So the heart is your subscribers or your potential subscribers. And this could be when you're going to give them something for free, which I think Jean next week is talking about lead magnet ideas. So I am going to mention lead magnets, but I won't go in depth on it. A lead magnet or opt-in is basically what you're giving them either for free or having them pay. So it's whatever you're giving away is your lead magnet, which is right here. So your lead magnet typically lives in a couple of places on your website. Sometimes you will see a bar at the top of the website where they say, subscribe to the newsletter or get this free thing, click here. and then a window will pop up, an opt-in form, and you can put your information there, and then something gets delivered to your email. Or it'll be a landing page, which is just one page, and again, it has usually a photo, and it'll say, get this XYZ, put your email in. Again, it's an opt-in form. This is also called a squeeze page. And so if you are working, especially for book launches, this isn't terminology we use a lot in the writing world, but it's used a lot in the business world. It's called JV, or joint venture partners. Okay, good. So we're familiar with JV. So you have what you get your JV partners. And what that means is if Jean and I write on similar topics, she may say, okay, I've got this book launch. I have this, this thing for your audience. And then she'll give me a link to her landing page. And then if Melissa's going to be a joint venture partner for her too, she's going to give Melissa that same link. And so if she gives 50 people, 50 JV partners this link, and then we share that link to our audience on behalf of Jean, then all the people from all these different email lists are now being squeezed into your email list. And that is how you can get a lot of people on your list, by partnering with people who have lists on similar things. So they're called JV partners. So basically you get somebody to this landing page or this opt-in form, and then you're going to give them something. And that very first email that they get is called the welcome email. And this may be the most important email that you write of the whole series. And it needs to do a few things. So then the first thing it needs to do is it needs to remind them how they got there, because they may not look at it right away. Who you are, what they got. Reference it fast and early. Number two, it needs to have some kind of value. And if it's delivering the free gift or paid gift or whatever it is that you're giving, that's the value. But I like to give an extra little piece of value to. You could give them a little bit of who you are or the company or whatever it is, a little piece of information. And then maybe ask a question. I like to ask questions in my emails because it encourages a very small percent of people to hit reply and start a communication with you, but also gives you a lot of good information if they will click something. So sometimes you'll put a call to action in that welcome email. And if you have a couple of emails that are going to auto send after that, let them know they're coming, because then you're encouraging them to look for your email, but then also to open it. And then the last thing that should definitely be in a welcome email, and this is optional really, but you may encourage them to put your email address on their safe sender list, or on their, it's called a whitelist, to where it's not going to get pushed into spam. And so sometimes you'll see that language in someone's funnel. So then
Bethany, we had a couple people ask the questions about the JV partners. How do you go about getting some? And is there an ideal number? Do you would just suggest, or how do you go about recruiting them?
The same way you would recruit people for your launch team. So if this was part of the bigger launches, of the big people who get these, like sell so many books on that first day, or you'll see they've got a lot of people talking about their book. It's basically a launch team, except in the business world, they call it JV partners. But what you're getting them to do is you're getting them to email the same thing. And so sometimes you will create for them it's called swipe copy, meaning I'm going to create for you some text and you can swipe it from me and send it to your people with a few little tweaks. And so, so I've been a part of some of the bigger ones, and that's what they do. It's the similar thing to what a lot of you do for launch. They'll have graphics that you can download. So basically they put everything on one website that you can have like a password to get on the page, and you can download all the graphics at different sizes. And then they have all the email copy already written for you. And then you just you swipe it, and then you send it out on the days that they recommend. So basically you're creating a funnel to your audience. So when you're doing, looking for a launch team, really in essence, you're kind of looking for JV partners. And so having people who have an email list, a targeted email list, is very beneficial, because those subscribers, a portion of those subscribers who come into that lead page now become your subscribers too. So it's a way to build an email list very quickly as well. We just don't call them JV partners in the writing world, but that is what they are. So if you're going to Google, like, if you're thinking like, okay, how can I maximize launch, or how can I maximize any kind of promotion? Google JV partners, how to get started with JV partners. That'll be the terminology, JV partners. And then a bunch of stuff will pop up, and probably give a lot of ideas that we could start using for writers. if that helps a little bit. But yeah, so something to start asking launch team people is to send emails for you and write
Okay.
it for them.
It's very similar, and you could create your launch team sometimes by hitting some of your targeted readers and asking if they want to participate, and you're going to get a certain percentage of them willing to help. I think you could probably reach out to some influencers too, couldn't you?
Yeah, especially if there's a big enough win for their audience, that really helps. Like whatever the lead magnet that you're giving away as part, like going back to the email for a second, what link are they being sent to and what are they going to get? So especially if that works really well for their audience, it makes sense for them to promote you to them. And then typically with the bigger ones, they have sometimes there's like a contest, because they usually have like hundreds of people on theirs, but they'll have like a contest or a giveaway or something for all the people kind of in the launch team or the JV partners. Sometimes they'll have the bigger ones, like have like leaderboards, and you can, and like different points get assigned to different things that they're tracking, because they're tracking everything, right? Like the data is really important. So yeah, it can be really big or it can be really small, but this would be the basics of it here. So yeah, JV partners. And I like the word partner, so I think that's nice. But let's see, make sure I got, okay, looks like that was the questions. Okay, that was a great question. They're all great questions. You want me to keep going on here or open up the floor?
You can keep going.
Okay. So we have the landing page, the squeeze page. If there's any questions about that, throw them in the chat. The welcome email is what gets sent first. And then you can decide how long you're going to wait in between email 2, email 3, email 4, however many they're going to be. So one person who does this really well, I don't know if she actually has the same funnel anymore, but I think I've talked about her when we talked about Pinterest, and it's Melissa Griffin, and she spells her name a little different than the traditional Melissa. It's got a Y, so I'll put it in the chat, but she has a, I think it was 7 days to a better Pinterest page was her giveaway, which is brilliant. And so if anytime that you could do like a 5 days or a 7 days, it could be Bible study, it could be fun facts, it could be literally anything that you're working on or writing, 7 days of books, 7 days of anything. Then basically what she's saying is, okay, I'm going to give you 7 tips, 1 a day. And then in her email, she would say, hey, thanks for signing up for the 7 days to a better Pinterest page. And I'm just paraphrasing here. Tip number 1 or day 1, set up your headshot and bio. And then she'd give a couple of tips. And then the big thing that I've learned recently that I'm a little bit obsessed with this idea, and you're going to know it. Like as soon as I say this, you're going to know it, but I had never heard anyone say it out loud. And that's when things kind of like clicked for me. And now I try to think about it this way. They're talking about, I think it was in a Clubhouse room, but they were talking about speaking when you're speaking to a group, and how sometimes as a speaker, you'll have people raise their hand, or it's like, has anyone ever done this? Right? Like, okay, raise your hand because we're together in this. Like, who's been late to church before? Like me, right? You're raising your hand, they're raising your hand. But what this guy said was, you always have to make sure you capture the whole room if you're answering the questions, because some people are going to say no to some people are always going to be yes, and some people are always going to be a no. But I have moved on. Like, okay, yes, we all know what it's like to be late to church or whatever. And then I go to my next point. But when you do that, you're leaving some of those no's who were not part of the group in that opening, even if it's a small number. And I never thought about that before. So what he was saying is, make sure you have a question, if you're going to do that, that captures the yeses and it captures the nos, so that everyone now is part of the group. So I've been thinking about that a lot. And she did this in her welcome email. She says, start with your bio and your headshot. Well, some of us already have our bio and our headshot done. Like, we want to increase our Pinterest page, but she is looking at the whole room. She's saying, if you're a beginner, here's what you do. But then she met the rest of us and said, if you've already got your headshot and bio done, excellent. I'll see you tomorrow for the next tip. Look for your email. I was one of the people who'd already had my bio done. But of course, I read what she said. I'm like, okay, that's all good. But I will tell you, the feeling I got from those like 2 lines, and this is why I remember it. It was, I mean, how many of us get told like you've done a good job during the day? Like, I don't get that. Like, maybe if I fish for a compliment from my husband, but it's just not something I think every day we're being told like, man, you're doing such a good job. Usually it's complaints. So, or, you know, someone's got a problem. And just to have that in there, like, great job, you're already set, you know, we'll go tomorrow. I remembered it. I liked her. I looked for the next email the next day, because then my competitive spirit was like, I wonder how many of these I've already got done. And the real reason I signed up was to make a better one anyway, but I wanted to be right the first time. So that's just like a personal issue I'm dealing with. But I love how she did that. And that was a really great welcome email, because I didn't open all of them, but I guarantee you I opened probably 4 or 5 of those 7 emails, which makes me a very valid subscriber, makes me a great subscriber for her in the numbers. I've even heard recently that sometimes not having someone open it is worse than unsubscribing, because there's no activity on an active subscriber. They're starting to be inactive for you. So teaching them to open that email is really important. And a 7 days, a 5 days is a really great way to start an email funnel with somebody and then move them forward. So I'll stop there and see if you've got any questions. And then
Yeah, we do have one question, but I was going to also make the comment. I think part of the key of that is the numbers. Whenever you start a lead magnet or any kind of hook with a number, and she did with 7 days to it, and then but then it was multiple things. But 5 ways to deepen your prayer life, or something like that, or 10 Bible verses that encourage you as a writer. I'm just the numbers are powerful as a headline hook.
They are.
Yeah.
Here's the thing,
Sandra.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say,
no, go ahead.
BuzzFeed is, it's called listicle, which is kind of a fun word. I don't know. I kind of like it, listicle. And it's anytime you're doing like a list, but BuzzFeed is famous for this. It's 25, of these 50 tweets on this. Like, anytime you're trying to think of like a good headline, BuzzFeed would be a great one to go down and look at the formula for it. And then I think it's David Garfinkel has a book that's wonderful, and it's called Advertising Headlines That Sell. And he breaks apart like 50 to 75 headlines that have worked in magazines, newspapers, all over. It's the formula. And then he tells you how to put your words into the formula. They're always like the top of the fold headline getters. So it's a great book, a great resource.
Wow. Sandra asked too, she said her website sends out a newsletter sign up with a lead magnet. And is that what you're doing with the emails different from, is what you're doing from the emails different from this sign up form? She doesn't know how to funnel that. So that's sort of what you're kind of talking about, but maybe you could use Sandra's example with your graphic here.
So my disclaimer, and then I'm going to dig into it. The disclaimer is there's so many different kind of websites that you'll definitely want to Google like how to do it with your specific like email host, and then your ESP, your email service provider, and then whatever kind of website you're using, because there's like Squarespace, Wix, there's WordPress.com, there's WordPress.org, like there's all different ones. So just, you'll want to Google to make sure you're doing it right for the programs that you're using. But in a nutshell, and for anyone who's using like WordPress.org, that's what I'm familiar with, they have plugins. And so I use ConvertKit. And so I have a ConvertKit plugin, MailChimp has a plugin, and then that plugin lives in your website. So that's what's sending it out when they come to your website. That's how the website is talking to your ESP. The funnel, all of this is happening through MailChimp or ConvertKit or MailerLite. And so all of this gets handled in the back end of your ESP, or email service provider. That's where you can do that. And then they should have, whichever one you're using should have tutorials, like how to set it up, how to do it. They all do it differently. And sometimes the terminology is slightly different, but it's all the same thing. There's a funnel. You can create funnels like this. You can either send them out as one broadcast, which is what ConvertKit calls it, or you can send them out as like what do they call it? It's
an automation.
It's an automation. And then they have like a way where you can do multiple emails, where you're just creating the emails in one spot, and then you just tell them how many days apart they're going to go. And I can show you a little bit in here. And then when we get to segmenting. But once you get through your emails, however many there are, so going back to Melissa, she's got 7 days to the better Pinterest page. If she doesn't have, if she has, I think what she was doing is she was doing a free webinar was like her ask. And so, yes, in the chat, that's the book, David Garfinkel link. With this ask, she was asking, do you want to be part of a webinar, a free webinar that I'm giving with that kind of goes deeper into how to use Pinterest, which is a great ask because anyone who's gone through 7 days of how to create a better Pinterest page, that's a very targeted audience who would probably want to increase their knowledge in Pinterest. So I'm going to scroll up real quick. This is the same funnel, except this is where they start to build. And so with the example with Melissa, if you said, yes, I want to be part of this free webinar, and you're saying yes by clicking the link that she has in the email. So in her email here, do you want to be part of this webinar? Sign up here. Here's a link. If you click the link, that indicates yes. And now you're going into a new funnel, which is the same thing, except this landing page was back-ended without being a landing page here with the link. So here's where you're getting them into a funnel to start. And now that they're in the funnel, now you're putting them into another funnel. Or if they don't click the link, you can just have them automatically drop down into your regular newsletter that they'll be getting. And then you can always ask people to join a free webinar in your newsletter. And of course, if they click the link, then they jump up into the webinar funnel or whatever it is. So this could be, if you're like, we were talking about book launches, if you're sending people an email and you're like, if you would like to be part of my book launch, click here. If they click yes, or they click the link and they're starting a new funnel, then that welcome email in the new funnel is going to be, yay, I'm so excited you agreed to be part of my launch team. Here's the link to our private Facebook group. Let me know what questions you have. I'll be sending more information later. That would be welcome email number 1 in that funnel. But this is the basis of the funnel, is just getting them into that welcome email and now continuing to circulate them through multiple funnels as you build new funnels on top of themselves. So they can get real big based on behavior, but it's interesting, you know, and she may even have this ask maybe a series of 3 emails. So this actually could be ask 1, ask 2, ask 3, like 3 circles next to each other, kind of like the emails, because you may not have opened that first email. You may not have seen it. You may not have been ready. So she'll give more value in her ask email number 2. Like, you may not have seen it, but we have got a free webinar coming up. What's keeping you from wanting to grow Pinterest? Is it time? Is it, you know, she's giving you options, letting you reply back, giving you a chance to opt in again. And then she may have one more, and I'm saying she, like, I don't know if she actually did this, but just as part of the example. Then the third ask email might be, you know, this is we're 1 week out from the free webinar. I'm not going to bother you with this again if you don't want to take it. Here's another piece of free value. Here's something that we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to give you a sneak peek. Drop some value in there. Again, trying to get people to go into the webinar funnel, because that webinar funnel then becomes a buy my product funnel. So do you see how we're like moving people? It's called a nurture process. So we've built trust. We're giving a lot of value. Our ask is very small. We're giving a lot of value that eventually leads to a bigger ask. And then if they don't click links, you drop them into your newsletter funnel. The problem that I've done, and this is probably where we get a lot of unsubscribes, and I know this is where I got a lot of unsubscribes very early when I wasn't doing this, was I would get people to a landing page or somehow to opt into something. They would get the welcome email, but it was kind of a basic welcome email. Like, here's what I said I would give you, enjoy. And then from this spot right here, they would automatically drop into the newsletter. And the problem with that is they don't know you very well. Like, you haven't built trust with them. And I feel like the language sometimes, this may not be true for everybody, but the language sometimes in the newsletter is a lot more conversational. There's an expectation of familiarity with you, a little bit of personality that's in there. And if they are coming in getting this opt-in and they're immediately going into a newsletter, it's like meeting someone for the first time and then inviting them to like family dinner, and it's awkward, right? There has to be a little bit of like you have to
Alright.
date people a little bit before
Mhm.
they like are okay, like, hey, come to my kid's soccer game and sit with me for an hour. Like, I would never do that. So like, that's, you don't want people, you want to get them excited about being on this list, not overwhelmed, but providing enough value where they don't unsubscribe when they get into the newsletter. And so if you're seeing a lot of unsubscribes, that might be why. It could be the funnel.
I really like that because then you are nurturing them more and stuff like that. I do like that and stuff. My question is, at what point do you have to legally ask them, hey, I'm putting you on my newsletter now, you're going to be getting regular? It seems like to me I've seen that you've got to at least say you get these 7 steps to writing a novel, and if you want to continue, you're on my newsletter list, or so. I don't know how you want to say it, or could you give us some words for that? Or
Yeah, so with the GDPR stuff that happened a few years ago, everyone got real, crazy about it. And I haven't kept up on it on American laws. I kind of watch what's going on with convert. Would it be easier if I stop my screen? I kind of watch what ConvertKit asks us to do, or even the people that I trust who are way better at business and email than I am. Like, what kind of language are they using in theirs? Because they've got a lot more to lose. So I always look at the people who have a lot to lose and people will sue.
yeah,
Right. So what are they doing? Because I'm sure their lawyers have gone over everything with a fine tooth comb. So I'm not saying that's how you should run your business, but I do pay attention to that. Just to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do. And so I don't know, one of the best practices I guess I can give you that I try to do in mine is the language can say something like, here are the 10 steps of marketing, plus weekly, monthly, quarterly resources, so that there is some expectation on that front page that there's going to be something extra. I think that, when all that happened, I remember someone saying, if you start it now, you're not going to have to go back and add it if it gets regulated. And I thought, well, I don't want to go back and do anything. So I just started kind of putting that there. And a lot of people, they don't care. They know they're going. I mean, at this point, if you sign up for a newsletter and you don't think you're getting jumped into a newsletter, then you haven't been doing email. So I think there's an expectation, but we do want to be on the legal side of things.
yeah.
I'd like to add to that, that you need to make sure that you put in an unsubscribe option. I got not too long ago a newsletter from somebody that I hadn't seen or heard from in many years. And all of a sudden it was like, I have a new book out. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. Good for you. How do I unsubscribe? And there was no way to unsubscribe. And actually that is illegal to not include an unsubscribe option for your subscribers. So always make sure that's in there.
That is why, and I'm glad you said that, because that's why you have to use, and going back to ESP, the email service provider, you cannot use your ISP, which is your internet service provider, to send those kinds of emails, because for that, one of the reasons is exactly what Brandy said, is there has to be a way for people to unsubscribe. And another thing too, you could get in trouble for, is there has to be the data on when they opted in. So if someone wants to come after you, in ConvertKit, MailChimp, they all do this because they track it. There is that opt-in, how they opted in, and then the date and time stamp. That's important because you can always go back and say, listen, this is when you opted in and you can unsubscribe, or I will unsubscribe for you. But yeah, I get some of those too with people, and I think they just don't realize what they're doing, but you can't do that.
Yeah. And Marlene asked too, she said, how many, what do you recommend? You showed us 3 on your graph, welcome emails, and is that a good number? And she assumed that's on the lead magnet, but those 3 include lead magnet, don't they?
Yeah, your welcome email should include the lead magnet. So whatever the delivery email is. So, okay, so I did ask this. I am in a marketing class right now, not for school, but just the program. And I specifically asked the question about the double opt-in, which means it's when you go to someone's site, you put your email in and they say, check your inbox and confirm your subscription or confirm your email. That's called a double opt-in. So you do have the option now to do a single opt-in as the marketer, which means if someone puts their email in, there's no confirmation email that goes out. And so why some people choose to do that, in some situations it might work, but it would be you would already have to know this was a targeted list already, that they don't need to double opt in because maybe they've already opted in somewhere else. But I don't think any of us are in a situation like that. So there just may be an exception. But people sometimes will choose a single opt-in method because they don't want people to not go to their inbox and click that confirm subscription, because then they're not confirmed. So like they don't actually get added in as a full subscriber if they don't go back and click that. Not everyone does go back and click that confirm button. And so sometimes I'll do that. However, I really think just best practices, the double opt-in is the better way to go. And that's what I recommend. It is safer for you. It also eliminates someone being able to put your email address into a website and then you start getting all these emails because you didn't confirm it. So there's like a safety thing to that too. But it also, that teaches them again to look for your email. And that's where you can put like in the instructions in it. But I asked them if there should be anything personalized in that automatic double opt-in email, or if it should just kind of be the basic standard, whatever the thing is sending out. And he kind of said, like, I would leave the language pretty much the way it is. If you want to put, some, maybe one, you're going to receive this, put the name of it, you could, but he said kind of leave that one alone for the most part. And so it's that once they confirm the email, they click that and then they receive the thing. If they receive the thing and that opens up on their, so, okay, well, let's talk about this real quick, just to get it on the recording. Sometimes that opt-in is going to come in with the welcome email. Sometimes as soon as you click that confirm subscription, automatically the PDF shows up on your website. So there's no email that's delivering it. It's just showing up. So there's two ways that those can be delivered. If it's just going to show up, you need to have a welcome email ready to send immediately. Like have it as a 0 day. In ConvertKit, you can do like a 0 day. And then it should pop up like, I hope you received the XYZ. If you didn't, let me know, right? Because now we're reading the room. Some people got it. Some people may not have looked at it. So now everyone's connected in this, we're all together. And then ask a question, offer some value. Here's a great way to use it. And here's another book resource that you might need. I mean, we can give tons of value. We're writers. So just add more value in the email. And then I've got if you didn't specify a number of days, like if they're not subscribing to like a 5-day or a 7-day thing, you could just say something like, find out a pain point. I always like to ask a question as my call to action in there. If you're not sending them to a YouTube video or a resource, like, what is the problem? What is the challenge? What is the hardest part? Because eventually over time, a lot of your content can come from the answers you're getting from the people in your email list. So those questions are like really important. The email number 2 can then address a common basic concern, but I would have it send out 2 or 3 days after that first one, 2 or 3 days after the next one, unless it's like a daily thing. Because again, you want them to open your email. You're teaching them to open the email because you're going to give a lot of value in the email.
I like the idea of you always giving them something on each of those emails. But I've also seen as form of connection and an invitation to connect on Instagram or Facebook or Pinterest or something like that. Be sure to follow along here, and you give some of those links too. I've seen that.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I can actually show what that looks like inside of ConvertKit because I saw another question come out about different genres. So I'm going to share my screen. I didn't want to show my ConvertKit just because I've got subscriber info in there, but so I did create a free ConvertKit this morning. So some of this stuff, it may pop up with like, here's how to start this, because this is when it's a brand new fresh account. So if that happens, that's what it would look like for you when you start, if you use them. But all I've done so far is I added my mom as a subscriber and I made a fiction tag. So inside of ConvertKit, they're called tags, and they may be called something else in the other systems, but tag is how you start to segment your audience, which just means that you have collectively, let's say you've got 1,000 people in your email list. Well, not everyone's there for the same reason, or they probably all didn't come in on the same lead magnet. And so you want to have a tag or some way to know why they're there. Because if like, okay, let's use Melissa. Melissa's got a book launch that she's working right now. She has historical romance, right, Melissa? I believe.
Just historical fiction, but
historical fiction. Okay, so if she's got people on her list who don't read historical fiction, they need a different email than the people who are rabid fans of historical fiction and have come in because they're looking forward to her book. So that's a way she needs to segment her list with 2 separate emails. One towards like, I know you love historical fiction. Boom, here's another one. She can talk to them in a different way than she's going to talk to people who may or may not be interested in historical fiction. So this is where this is what I love about email marketing, is that you really get to meet the needs of your audience really well. So you can I have tons of tags, way too many tags, and my personal convert kits, I tag everything, but this is how you would do it here. Basically, I just copied this text from the PDF that I was showing you. So if this is the email, and if you'll see right here, this automatically gets put in by ConvertKit. MailChimp will do the same thing. I can't delete this. It is part of it. And you don't have to worry about creating that. So we're just going to pretend that this is about fiction. And this is going to be my ask. And let's say I want my mom to go to, or my subscribers to go watch a video on YouTube. Maybe I've got a fiction how-to video, and that's my call to action in this email. It's the only thing I want them to do. So then I can highlight whatever it is, and I can stick a link here, and I'll just put a link in. Let's say suspense.com. This is the beautiful button here, because this is how I can tag anyone who clicks this. And so I only have one set up in here, but you can create them, and then you can put as many as you can only put one tag per link, but you can have as many tags as you want. So I would say fiction, I'm going to add the link. And so now when this email gets sent, anyone who tags this automatically in their subscriber area is going to have a little tag that says fiction. And so what you can do is, if you've got like a fiction event coming up, you can send it only to people who have the fiction tag in their subscriber list, because not everybody cares about that. And so it's a way that's how you start to segment your list. And I like to do it very early on in the email funnel, because I need people to start voting with their actions and telling me what it is they want. So for books, actually, I was just talking to someone yesterday. She's got her target audience demographic splits, which it does for a lot of us. Sometimes it's readers, sometimes it's theme-based, and sometimes it's more than one target audience that you're going after. So she was going after moms and grandmas were her target audience for children's books. And so one of the things we talked about in her strategy session was creating 2 different tags. And then in her welcome funnel, having resources, one resource very targeted to a mom of little ones who might buy a book for their children. And then also a link very targeted to an empty nester grandma. And so then each one of those links would be tagged, and whatever link they clicked on would start to segment her list from the very beginning. And so they came in a certain way for the same reason, and now she needs to kind of split them up a little bit so she knows how to gear the rest of those targeted emails to them. Are they moms or are they grandmas? Now, obviously anyone can click both of them if they wanted to see both resources. So that's why you would continue to funnel throughout your plan, using a lot of tags, because you can register a tag, you can deregister a tag, all those things. It also helps you kind of see like what people are interested in by how many. Over on the sidebar, let me see if we're just going to play around for a second. So this is what it looks like on the dashboard. So I have one new subscriber because I illegally subscribed my mom. And here is the tags. I have got one subscriber to the fiction tag. And so as you start to develop your tags and as you're embedding them in your emails, you can see the numbers start to grow, because if I have 5 tags and my mom has opted into every single one of them, it's one person that I'm paying for, but now I've got her in 5 different like lists, I think is what MailChimp calls them, or tags here. But as people click, you're going to start to see, oh, wow, like the historical, or they clicked to the historical Goodreads challenge for 2021. I'm just making it up, but that could be something that you link, like check out the winners. Actually, that would be a great one, Melissa. Check out the winners of the 2020 Goodreads historical thing, because you're delivering them straight value to see the winners list. Which ones have you read, right? So now we have a conversation going about the winners in your genre. I would be tagging that. I would tag it. You could just tag it historical fiction if you wanted to keep it simple, or you could say click to Goodreads, because now you have people who are using Goodreads And now you know they're using Goodreads, and now you can connect with them on Goodreads in another email. Like, hey, let's all share our Goodreads email. Let's follow each other. So that's how I would segment it. And then in ConvertKit, they have tags, which is like the one tag like we talked about. And then the segment would let you say, okay, everyone who has ever clicked anything to do with any kind of fiction, or maybe just historical fiction, I'll put them here. And so that way, if you have a historical tag that's here, and then if you have the Goodreads, clicked to Goodreads 2020 winner, that could be a long tag. You could also put that into the historical segment here, which is another way then to send emails, which makes it easier. So the segment basically says all of these tags belong together, and we'll make it easy for you just to send to a segment of them instead of going through and clicking all the tags you need it to. So those are very helpful things. And that is my mom's email, but I think it's on her website. So sorry, Mom.
Hey, Bethany, what I'm confused about is if you have multiple tags, and let's say your mom clicked 2 of the tags, does she get 2 sets of email funnels?
Let's say we do this. So right now I've got nobody here. Yes. So let's say I send an email out and I'm sharing the resource, the headlines that make you rich or whatever, the best advertising headlines book. That's a nonfiction thing. I would actually probably tag that as marketing. That's not really not a good idea. But let's say I do send something out and she clicks a nonfiction link that tags her with that. Anything that I send out to that nonfiction tag, she'll get because she has the tag.
Okay.
But she'll also get anything that goes out to the fiction if I send something out that way, because she's interested in fiction. She told me that based on her click.
Okay, so she could, in theory, be getting double emails from me on a specific thing, even though it's segmented. You know, I mean, not segmented.
Oh, okay, so not a double email. So can we dig into that a little bit? Like a repeat email?
Yeah, I'm not the same email. She might get, when you go back to your funnel, she might get email 2 and 3 from one set of tags and 2 and 3 from another set of tags.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Or so what you can do that. So sometimes it probably would be good to set up a second funnel. Like if you have a tag, like what do you want to happen from that? Personally, I kind of let them just marinate and nothing happens. Like if they click it, they just get tagged in my system unless I have something very specific to say, and then I will send an email to the segment, which is not as common as if I was doing more marketing through it, I probably would, but I don't personally send them a lot like that. But yes, so like if she went into like nonfiction, and even in here, and probably every system will do these automations, which is just going to be blank because I don't have anything set up in here. Basically, you can set up an automation, a visual automation in here, which says, if someone gets added to the nonfiction tag, then they're going to get this. And it could be an extra email, it could be a funnel, it could be anything, which is how you set up, let me stop share here, which is how you set up this part is some kind of automation. So that way you've got your emails kind of written out, you've put them in. Then if this tag is added, they get a whole new set of funnel emails. And so I would actually have that funnel be a little different than what I would do if it was coming from the landing page, because they've already gone through this and they know you. And so that welcome email isn't an introduction email. It's more of a resourceful email, like, hey, okay, we're going to talk about planners. And here's what we're going to do with it. Whereas I could probably keep the majority of that email funnel that's coming into my newsletter, and I could create a new funnel with it that's going to attach to a landing page, because all I have to do then is change the welcome funnel to be an introduction funnel. And then they're still getting all the same information. So so you can really repurpose your funnels just by making sure that welcome funnel is geared to either a current subscriber, maybe duplicating it, and then making that a lead magnet that people can opt in on. And that's how you can have like all these multiple ones, but they start small. So don't get stressed, but start small.
I see that.
And then it builds. all in the back.
I understand that. Yeah, but that kind of leads to Sally and Carissa's question then too.
Mhm.
Okay, so you've nurtured these along in fiction and nonfiction. Let's use those because those are good broad categories
Mhm.
and that way. And then are you sending out two different newsletters?
No,
Then
I just send one.
their question is different genres, different email newsletters for each kind of newsletter, or do you kind of combine? Let's say you had both fiction and nonfiction and you try to address both in your newsletter. If you had two different, if you're dealing with two broad groups, what do you suggest?
So I can tell you what we do with Serious Writer, because that's what we do, because we have multiple genres in that email that we have to address. So
Mhm.
that newsletter is pretty long, and if any of you see it, and some stuff pertains to you and some stuff doesn't pertain, because it's just a very resourceful thing, but we tag all of those links. And so we kind of make sure we just cover all of the different main subject lines. But by the time they get into the newsletter, hopefully they've already gone through a funnel where they know that, and now they're just there to get like a weekly or twice a month information and updates and resources. So that's what the newsletter is. So if your author newsletter is one of those just updates with information and resources and things, then maybe you can cover the two audiences, or maybe three. As a writer, you probably only have like two or three, unless you really have branched into two opposites, then you might be running two different newsletters. But in that case, you've already got them segmented, right? So like that's a lot of work. So I like to do things combined. But
Right.
any kind of targeted things, like for a book launch, or you can still mention it in the general newsletter that's going to everybody. But then if they click a specific link, like if you know they're interested in the genre because you've been tagging links, then you could set up a funnel for people to go through to eventually buy the book as part of your launch. You're just creating those emails in one spot and then just having it trigger. So anytime at this point, if anyone clicks this, they automatically go through this funnel now. And so it's a lot of setup work in the beginning, but then it just runs. And so like people who are running businesses, they've got these webinars, these courses and things, a lot of that stuff is just running in the background for them because it's being auto delivered and auto handled, which is really nice.
Unmuted. Brand, we've got about 5 minutes before we bring everybody back on. Brandy, I don't know if you want to wrap up or say something else, or I was going to see if Brandy or Melissa had a question before we bring everybody back.
I'm at the beginning of all of the newsletter stages. Excuse me. So this has been a very good information session for me. One of the things that I tend to struggle with other people's newsletters is those first introductory emails. I feel like I'm barraged all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. And so I have it very prominently in my mind that I don't want to do the same thing to people. So what would you recommend is a good spacing of those first couple of emails so that people are not turned off by them, but still get to know you?
I think being really clear about what they're opting in for, which is why I really like a 3-day, 5-day, 7-day situation, because they've chosen to opt into a multiple day sequence. And that sometimes it makes me feel more comfortable as the marketer, because I don't feel like I'm pushing myself because they opted into it. Otherwise, it kind of feels like, am I interfering with their space? So I know I get that too. And so the thing is, if you are someone who is always concerned about that, you're not going to do it to someone else. And so I've had people tell me that, like, okay, the fact that you're thinking about it means that you're not going to do it. But I will say, because I find myself in that camp, is I don't market near enough like I should, because I'm so afraid of like spamming people. And that's my hurdle right now. And so, like as I'm still learning and going deeper into this, I will tell you that the guy said that, I mean, they've spent millions on like companies, like they're doing their marketing. And he said it's 2% opt-in. So like you can have like a sales page or like a lead magnet page and stuff. 98% of people are going to say no. And I was like, oh, that's much higher than I thought. And so he's like, look at your percentages and then don't worry about hurting their feelings or feeling they're spamming, because they can unsubscribe. And so like really the onus is on them. Like there is an unsubscribe button and they can unsubscribe, or they cannot open it and they cannot read it. So you just have to say, okay, this is the best practice. I'm delivering value and I'm not spamming or asking. I will tell you what annoys me, and this is a personal preference. I'm just kind of wondering if this is for anybody else, but I hate the emails that come in and it's like people I want to learn from, right? And they're doing it, but then I unsubscribe is because I get like 4 paragraphs about their life or why they haven't emailed me in a while. And I don't know what the point of the email was. And I'm tired of reading about them. And then finally they're like, oh, here it is. I'm like, can you just put that in the front? Like, put it at the top of the email. What are you giving me? Because that's why you're in my inbox, right? I'm here to take from you. And so those are the ones that I usually unsubscribe from. So I was like, keep them short and get to the point. Brennan Burchard does
or the ones that want to tell you right away.
Yes.
You're not giving you value. They're asking for your money almost right up the top. Hey, and I sell this $799 program, $99 a month program to become da 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 da. You know, just you back to the word nurture. You nurture them.
Nurture them and give them value. And so Brennan Burchard is great. So I would recommend following him, learning from him, watching his YouTube videos. He has something called the OVO. I will put it in here. It's the offer. Opt-in value offer, I think is what that stands for, but I might be messing that up. But basically it's his email sequence that he teaches where it's like, here's your welcome, here's what you're giving them, you're offering the value, and it's the ask. And it's kind of like Gary Vaynerchuk's whole like jab, 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 give, and then you do the right hook, which is your ask. And if you don't have a book out, your ask could be watch this video on YouTube, or let's be friends on Goodreads, or join this Facebook group, or join my lunch team, or why don't you, once you get your funnel created, why don't you create a little 30-minute course or webinar that you can do as an evergreen model on whatever it is. Like, this is where you can start to build that, but this is kind of just the foundation of it. And I know people were asking questions about different options. If you're Googling these things, a trick in Google is you can do MailChimp versus like VS and just see what Google populates, because people do all kinds of like comparison things. So whichever one you're looking at, if you're looking at 2, put that in there and then just put the one name, MailChimp versus, and see what pops up and then read about them, because they're always changing their terms or what counts as a subscriber and what doesn't. But you do want to make sure, because I did see this in the comments, make sure that you're only paying for the subscriber for the one email. So some of these will charge you, like my mom could be in multiple lists for me, but it's one email address. So I only pay one time for her. And some of these companies will, if she subscribes into like 5, she's now 5 emails that you're paying for. Like, I think that's a ripoff. So you want to just make sure you're paying for the one email for one person, and then they can opt into as many things as they want to with you.
That sounds great. Why don't we invite people come on back in for the last couple minutes and see if there's a burning question. This is kind of a 2-parter. Melissa, do you want to tell us a little bit about what we're talking about next week, especially on the recording, and how we're going to follow up with this?
Sure, we're going to go in a little bit more to that lead magnet. Sorry, I can't talk very well. The lead magnet discussion, and just kind of listening into the questions and stuff. I think that what I kind of had planned will be very helpful. I'm planning to demonstrate how that introductory funnel is going to look like. I'll be showing what mine is from the back end of MailerLite and how you can create that first introductory funnel. I'll show you each part of mine, all the emails, and it needs to change. So I'm going to be showing everybody the pros and cons of what I've got going and what you can do better. And then
that's how we learn. That's how we learn.
So you can see that introductory funnel, and then Jean is going to talk about the different kinds of lead magnets too, I believe.
I'm just going to give you some ideas of some of the stuff I don't have a newsletter personally, I will tell you that, but I get people through lead magnets to sign up for my blog to get notification when new blog. So it's similar in that way, and tried some creative things with lead magnets. So I'm just going to share with you at least some of the things that have worked well for me and stuff. But I tell you that 2 things I have really learned today, Bethany, is the word again, nurture. I think that is a really key thought. And the idea of creating the lead magnet over multiple days is just, it's a great of an idea, you know, because they, like you said, then they know they're signing up for multiple emails, which kind of takes what Brandy and I agree with Brandy. I feel a little uncomfortable, like, why am I getting another email from this person? I already got my freebie that I want, you know.
Mhm.
But if they sign up purposely, 3 days of that, oh, I love that idea. So I just love it, love it, love it. So this has been amazing today. You're getting a lot of compliments. I see.
Nice.
Yes.
We see that and stuff. We got just a minute 2 left. Anybody have a burning question that they want to hop on and ask?
I'll say this before someone comes on, just to get it on the recording, but if you're doing a follow-up email and it's not like a 7-day, your second email could be, I wanted to make sure you received it. Did you have any questions about it? What would you add to it? So now it's become a conversation about the lead magnet that you delivered. That would also be a very less interfering way to have a conversation with the subscriber.
That sounds good. Johnny shared just a little bit under weather and off camera today. What were you going to share today? Was it mailer light?
Me, yeah, I was
Sue?
going to do a mailer light showing how the drag and drop thing works with my newsletter.
Okay. So we might be able to squeeze that in next week too.
Yeah, it
So-
would only be about 10, 15 minutes, so it wouldn't be very
Yeah,
long.
yeah, because people had some questions about the different, like things like ConvertKit, MailerLite, MailChimp. I use a Weber. Bethany, can you think of any others on top of your head?
Constant Contact.
Yeah,
Then if you go into CRMs, which is like a bigger system, customer relationship management, those are really expensive. But usually you're making a lot of money from your email and it supports the cost of it. But Infusionsoft, there's Entreport, there's like 2 others. Actually, I think Infusionsoft became something else, has a new name, but
okay.
a CRM
A good,
level.
if you had to recommend one, you'd recommend,
ConvertKit. I've used them for years.
or MailerLite. Didn't you use them and then left them and came back to them? There
Me?
was one, yeah.
I
There
used
was
it
one you,
for a while, and then
Yeah.
I switched to ConvertKit. But they started out as an email service for writers, like taking out like the pressure of doing email and just getting back to writing, which is why I liked them. There's a lot of good things about a lot of them, but I'm pretty loyal. I'm a big fan of them.
yeah, on that way. Well,
Yeah.
can you stay on for a few minutes for the after party, Bethany? Okay, that is great. Let's wrap up the recording, and we thank everybody for being with us today. This is great, whetting our appetite, stretching our muscles a little bit to learn some
Comfort
different things. Yeah, right. And learn. There's always one to learn on that way. So we invite you to stay back on for the after party. And we'll see you next week for part 2 discussion. Try to go into little specific details on both leg magnets and especially the mailer stuff. Sounds like a beer to me. I can't say it. I'm sorry, Miller Lite. And we'll see you all next week. We love seeing you guys all there. We had a lot of the main ones here today. And thank you for taking the time to watch it on the replay too. Bye, everybody.